Hi, my name is Jacob Heimovitz. This has to be under 15 minutes. And we're going to do an unboxing of the original Fast and Furious film trilogy in the Fast and Furious film franchise. One of my favorite top 5, one of my favorite movies of all time, and one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time next to Independence Day, James Bond, which I haven't seen. I've seen the last 2 James Bond movies, Jason Bourne and Transformers, and Independence Day. And when I was 6 and 10 years old, my mom and dad would never let me see the Fast and Furious films from the 2000s because it was too violent and too explicit for me. It had a lot of violence, sexual content, and profanity, as well as drug content. When I was 11, the 4th Fast and Furious film came out in theaters when I was a preteen in middle school. And the 5th Fast and Furious film came out in theaters when I was a teenager in middle school, 13. At age 13, but I wasn't mature enough to see those films when it came out in theaters. Fast and Furious 4 and 5, I wasn't mature enough just to see those in theaters. But on May 24th, 2013, I saw the first Fast and Furious film, the original Fast and Furious film, on cable, on TNT, for the first time, and I loved it and enjoyed it before seeing the new Fast and Furious 6 in theaters. And I saw Fast and Furious 6, 7, and 8, and the original Fast and Furious film in theaters. I saw the first Fast and Furious in theaters on June 22nd, 2016 at AMC Century City 15 as a 15th anniversary. I did not see Fast and Furious 1 with Tal Shalev, my former babysitter who works out with me on Thursdays, because it was too violent and explicit for me. When I was 7, I saw the Pacifier in theaters with Vin Diesel, and I loved the Pacifier, and I loved Vin Diesel when I was 7 to 10 years old. I still saw, in June 2006, I saw and liked the original Triple X starring Vin Diesel, not Triple X State of the Union. But it was still too violent and explicit and inappropriate for me, the first Triple X. I hated that memory. It was the most dangerous, the most unsafe, inappropriate time of my life. Seeing Triple X when I was 8 with Tal Shalev in June 2006. I saw the first Triple X when I was 8 in June 2006 with Tal Shalev. I rented it at a video store, and I hated that memory. I never could have seen Triple X, the first one, I was 8, because it was too violent and explicit for me. But I actually did, because I liked Vin Diesel when I was 7 and 8. I liked him in I liked him in Triple X and the Pacifier. When I was 8 years old, my mom could not let me watch the Fast and Furious films, including the first one with Vin Diesel. But now, when I was 15, I finally got to watch the first Fast and Furious film starring Vin Diesel. And I loved it, but I didn't see it when I was 6 and 10 because it was too violent for me. My parents would never let me see Fast and Furious 2 and 3 when I was 6 to 8 and 10 years old because it was too violent and explicit for me. But now I've seen Fast and Furious 2 and 3 on my iPod, and I loved it. I'm a huge Fast and Furious fanatic, diehard Fast and Furious fan. When I was 15 years old, I was a huge diehard Fast and Furious fan when I was 15, and I'll show you the 4K Blu-rays I got from Best Buy. This has to be under 15 minutes. The original Fast and Furious stars Vin Diesel, and when I was 6 and 10 years old, my parents could not let me see that movie. It was too violent and explicit for me. It has a lot of violence, sexual content, profanity, and drug content, like drinking, smoking. It's not appropriate for a 6 and 10-year-old. The first time I saw the first Fast and Furious film is on May 24th, 2013. On May 24th, 2013, when Fast and Furious 6 opened in theaters, I saw the first Fast and Furious film on cable, on television, before seeing the new Fast and Furious movie. It was the first time I've seen a Fast and Furious movie. And on the first Fast and Furious 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8 are available on 4K HDR. They have DTS6 soundtrack on the 4K Blu-rays. But the bad news, Fast and Furious 4 and 5 are not out on 4K Blu-ray yet. So you'll have to wait until Fast and Furious 4 and 5 comes out on 4K Blu-ray with the DTS6 soundtrack and HDR. So, they're saying the Fast and Furious 1 is an hour 46 minutes. But the movie is about an hour 47 minutes long. And for Fast and Furious 2, they're saying it's an hour 47 minutes, but the movie's about 108 minutes long. An hour 48 minutes. So I loved Vin Diesel when I was 7, but my mom would not let me watch the Fast and the Furious 1, only Triple X and the Pacifier. I would never could have seen Triple X when I was 8, but I actually did saw Triple X when I was 8 with Tal and I in June 2006. That never could happen, but it did. I still love the Triple X movies as a teenager. I used to own the Fast and the Furious movies on Blu-ray, but now I used to own Fast and Furious 1, 2, and 3 on Blu-ray 2 times, but I used to own the Fast and the Furious film trilogy 2 times, 2 on Blu-ray, but now this is my 3rd time I have it on Blu-ray. This is my first time I have it on Blu-ray. I'm gonna buy Fast and Furious 6, 7, and 8 on Vudu in Dolby Vision. I don't care about the DTSX soundtrack on Fast and Furious 6, 7, and 8. I care about the Dolby Vision picture quality because it is much better picture quality. Dolby Vision makes every frame and pixel better for Fast and Furious 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to buy Fast and Furious 6, 7, and 8 on Vudu in 4K HDR Dolby Vision. The bad news is it doesn't have Dolby Atmos. Only the 4K Blu-rays have DTSX and HDR. Here's the front, spine, and the back. You'll see there's HDR, special features. Don't let your 6 and 10-year-old kid watch Don't let your 6 and 10-year-old kid watch the Fast and the Furious films until they are mature 11-year-olds. Let's stick with Fast and Furious 2. I saw Fast and Furious 2 when I was 16 in Israel. I saw it when I was on vacation to Israel. Well, I first saw Fast and Furious 2 while I was on a plane to Israel, and I loved it. The Fast and the Furious 1 had only one famous and popular song. It didn't come from Fast and Furious 1. The Fast and the Furious 1, the only very hit single it had that wasn't from the movie but it was used in the movie has Rollin' by Limp Bizkit. My favorite song from the Fast and the Furious 1 soundtrack is Rollin' by Limp Bizkit. Rollin' by Limp Bizkit was released in 2000, and it wasn't from the Fast and the Furious soundtrack. It was used in the Fast and the Furious 1 soundtrack. And Rollin' by Limp Bizkit is a popular and hit song around the world, and it peaked on the top 40 in the United States and all over the world, and is one of Limp Bizkit's most famous and popular hit songs. It wasn't from Fast and Furious, it was very famous in the Fast and the Furious 1. So this one had hit singles from the movie. I don't know about the soundtrack, such as Active Fool. I don't know how popular and successful it is, but here it is. And let's talk about. I love Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. This probably had to be my favorite. It has drift racing, but when I was 8 years old, and 10 years old, and 9 years old, my parents would not let me see this movie. It's full of violence, sexual content, and profanity, maybe drug content. And I saw this when I was 16 in Israel on my iPod, and I loved it. And also, I like the soundtrack. Plus, I love the CGI special. I love the CGI special effects in all 3 Fast and Furious movies. Fast and Furious 3 had a lot more CGI effects compared to the first 2. And I'm sad Paul Walker died. I wish there were books like Fast and Furious, but there isn't any books like Fast and Furious. There's only books like Fast and Furious that are popular. There are only books like Fast and Furious that are popular, action-packed, not popular in the United States, but popular in New Zealand. Called the Cars series. Sounds like the Disney movie Cars. But they're not popular in the United States, they're only popular in New Zealand, which I'm very disappointed. I could not find any books like Fast and Furious, but because there isn't any books like Fast and Furious, it's just a movie. And I don't know the picture quality, because not on the Fast and the Furious movies on 4K Blu-ray, because not all 4K HDR movies are transferred and created equally. Let's get this all out. Technical difficulty, stand by. There we go. Hold on. I'm about to unbox them. Alright. And we're back. With all those 4K Blu-rays. Here's the 4K HDR disc. Here's the digital copy. I have the first 3 Fast and Furious movies on here's the Blu-ray disc. Here's the 4K HDR disc. It has to be 15. Here's the 4K Blu-ray disc, and here's the Blu-ray disc. Here's the 4K Blu-ray disc and the Blu-ray disc. Here are all of your digital copies. Plus, all the Fast and Furious movies on 4K Blu-ray with HDR have DTSX, so you'll need a 4K HDR TV you'll need a 4K Ultra HD TV with HDR and a 4K Blu-ray player and a Dolby Atmos and DTSX soundbar. In order to watch the Fast and Furious films on 4K Blu-ray with a 4K Ultra HD, in order to watch the Fast and Furious movies on 4K Blu-ray on a 4K Ultra HD TV with HDR, you'll need a Dolby Atmos and DTSX soundbar that supports 4K HDR. You'll need a Dolby Atmos and DTSX soundbar and a 4K HDR TV to watch all the Fast and Furious movies. That's it. Bye.